watched live. On the 25th, Geshe is going to give the Bodhisattva vows along with a meditation on arising bodhicitta. It's going to be a short session of about an hour, but this will kind of allow a more contemplative approach to receiving the Bodhisattva vows, which will be offered during the initiation, but in a very abbreviated form. If you missed the Chakra Samvara yesterday and you are hoping you have the initiation or hoping to watch this, we're just doing a few tweaks with the video quality, and that will be posted in the coming days. So the first Sunday in November, it will be a Sunday off for Geshe and myself, but Dekili Oldershaw will be making a presentation about it's transformative mindfulness, right, Dave? She's going to be talking about transformative. Okay, so she'll be doing Dekili. So Dekili Oldershaw is one of the people who kind of innovated this program and presented it here and also in continuing ed at University of Toronto for several years. So should be a very interesting session. And then we will be back the following Sunday with our new text, Kamala Shila's Stages of Meditation, with the side topic of commentary on the 21 praises to Tara. And for the first installment that Sunday, Geshe will also give oral transmission for the prayer of the 21 praises to Tara. So thank you for bearing with me. Sorry for cutting into the time a little bit. Grab yourself a cup of tea or coffee. We'll invite Geshe down and we'll get started. Good morning, Cindy and everybody. That's very kind. Precious friends. I hope so. It's a nice feeling. I hope so. So thanks so much. Good morning, everybody. Can everybody hear my voice clearly? Great. And again? And can you hear Geshe-la's voice? Awesome. Okay, great. So first of all, Tashi Dele, greetings to all Dharma friends. Geshe hopes all of your worldly and spiritual activities that everything is going well. So, of course, when we speak about our health as a person, we want both a body and a mind that are healthy. And when we speak about the body and mind, although the body is important, we know that the mind is the most important. And then when we think about our engagement with Dharma, we know that our engagement with Dharma is mainly for our mental health, for training the mind. So Geshe said that he reflects on this for himself, and he thinks that this is made easier by he's saying he's just a little guy, right? Small stature, kind of small physical form, so not so powerful physically, but he said that from looking within the mind and kind of turning sort of the attention within the mind, he sees all the potential and power that is in the mind, and that doesn't depend on physical stature. Listen. But of course, when we talk about a powerful mind, we can talk about minds that are wholesome and minds that are evil, and we can also talk about potentialities and power, right, that are wholesome and that are unwholesome. But a thing should be mentioned here, right? When we speak about the afflicted minds, right? When we speak about these unwholesome mental states, right? These potentialities exist within us, and they're activated, and the emotional experiences of those minds are powerful. But what we have to understand is that the afflictions are limited. When we speak about minds like attachment, when we speak about minds like anger, those don't arise on the basis of all sentient beings, usually, just on a limited, so they are less powerful than wholesome minds. And that is a fault or a limitation of those afflicted minds. So minds like love, minds like compassion, minds like bodhicitta, to clarify, because they are cultivated, right, on the basis of a consideration of all sentient beings, they are not limited. They can be made vast and brought to perfection. So this is, one important distinguishing feature between those unwholesome mental states and these positive mental qualities. The other thing to consider here is that the afflictions are all necessarily connected with this mind of ignorance. Ignorance is a mistaken mind that does not perceive the way things really are. Therefore, minds that arise connected with it are naturally going to be limited, less powerful. And so because of these characteristics that we mentioned, we can realize that actually we have this opportunity to bring forth these powerful minds in a limited way, in a way that can purify all of the negative karmas accumulated from beginningless lifetimes until now, through bringing forth bodhicitta, love, compassion, and the practices of method and wisdom. All of this is available to us. And so if we do that, then also, right, those provisional goals, like being able to achieve happy future rebirths, this also becomes an excellent basis, the best basis for that. It will become a cause for our own welfare. It will become a cause for the complete welfare of others. It will become the cause for the arising of a perfect happiness that is completely untouched by suffering or difficulties. So we talked about these obstacles, right, that prevent the activation of the lineage or the activation of the potentials. It's hard to be without all four completely, but definitely we are less impacted than most beings. And so now we must take this opportunity to tap into that potential, to activate the lineage of our Buddha nature and so forth. So out of these four afflictions to the activation of the potential or the activation of the lineage, which really means Buddha nature, I'll just say that as a clarification. It's the fourth one, habituation to the afflictions, sometimes given as strong afflictions, which is the most pernicious, right, the most difficult to overcome. And so what is our strategy then to deal with that? Well, first we need to be introspective and we need to sort of identify which afflictions are arising most frequently for me, right? Which of those afflictions is the strongest? And then sort of starting with those more apparent ones, directly, experimenting with applying the antidotes to those. This is the way to proceed. Sorry, the young person sorry. I asked very, very nicely for a repeat. So Geshe said, you asked so nicely, so how can he refuse? Yeah. Right. Ale, los. Yeah. Right. And so another strategy to deal with this, and one of the reasons that we're studying actually, is to really understand that in terms of like where we're actually directing our anger, there's not a single sentient being, human, animal, and so forth, that is suitable for us to direct the anger at, because they're not really the cause of the problem, it is the afflictions. So, of course, is it easy to shift that perspective? Well, not at all, but we need to try. We need to sort of think about strategies again and again. We need to rely on valid reasonings. We need to rely on correct scriptures and so forth. And then slowly, we can shift that. So Geshe was joking that so for those of you familiar with the Bodhisattva vows, you know that you're not supposed to abandon working for the happiness of even one sentient being. And then at the monastery, the friends are always joking like, you're not allowed even one. Oh, that's like a pretty difficult, because there's some pretty nasty people out there. So it's not an easy task, right? But to kind of avoid falling into that, what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to draw a distinction between that person and the unwholesome activities that they are engaged in, or the sort of afflicted mental states that they are continuously arising. If we can separate the sentient being from the action, then we'll see that even though they may be engaged in that behavior, they are still definitely worthy of our love, still definitely worthy of our compassion, and so forth. So if we can shift this perspective and bring forth this universal appreciation of all sentient beings as being worthy of our affection, as being worthy of our love, as being worthy of our compassion, then the result of this, this will purify our internal winds, it will purify our mind, it will lead to great peace. And when you really sort of evaluate it, training in thinking this way is the very best sort of exercise for both our body and our mind. So realizing these minds, that's going to maybe be a little bit far off. We need to engage in meditation. We need to engage in really sincere practice. But in terms of these ways of thinking and using them and experiencing greater mental happiness, that's something that is going to happen for us very quickly, actually. Yeah, so then, when we speak about health, especially mental health, but also just health, we don't need to worry about so many elaborate things to do. We can just start with these simple transformations of mind. Yeah. So, of course, all of those other things are good practical exercises to take care of our body and mind and so forth, but this is definitely a place where we can start. So Geshe said that in terms of our preliminary meditation today, then his idea was, in order to kind of be able to still the mind, to stop the disturbing thoughts and conceptions, the distractions, as well as to clear away the negative states and unwholesome karma, he'd like to begin with a meditation on emptiness. And this particular meditation is inspired by a verse from Nagarjuna's precious Garland. Okay, so so I'll so what I'll do is I'll read out the verse first for all of you, and then what we'll do is we will after that do the meditation. So let me just read the verse. This is from Precious Garland. A person is not earth, not water, not fire, not wind, not space, nor consciousness, none of these. What person is there other than this? So we'll do the meditation now. So the body and mind are vast, and from their vastness bring forth a state of peace or relaxation. And then think bring forth this conception of the self. And you can think about this in relationship. For example, my body, my mind. Bring forth that conception. So we should be able to see that I, or the self, this is something that is designated in dependence upon body and mind, for example. So if the self, the I, is designated dependently upon the body and mind, is there a self that we can find that exists from its own side? So just in a relaxed way, engage with this investigation and maybe start with trying to locate the self within the body. A person is not earth, not in the earth element. I'm supposed to elaborate upon that. So sorry, I didn't know. So a person is not earth. So we can think about the organs and the parts of our body associated with the earth element. There's no findable person in those. Going through the other organs and fluids associated with the various elements, such as water, the blood, and so forth, we see that there is no findable self or person in any of those. And once we come to that conclusion, there's no need to investigate further. A person is not water, not in the blood, not in the bile, and so forth. A person is not fire, not in the digestive organs of the stomach and so forth, the heat parts of the body. A person is not wind, not independently identifiable based on the coarse or subtle winds, the prana that move through the body. So we've been able to infer that there is no pinpointable self located within the various physical aspects of the body. So we can set this investigation aside. So now that leaves us from the verse with just space and consciousness. Those are the only two left to explore and see if we can find a findable self. So we can start by trying to locate the self in the sense consciousnesses, the eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tactile consciousness, and so forth. We see there's no self-existing I in any of those. Then we can think about the mental consciousness. There is no findable self within any of the sense consciousnesses, nor within the mental consciousness. There is no I that exists from its own side. So this just leaves the spaces between the physical aspects of the body, the empty spaces. There's no identifiable I or self in any of those either. Like an empty sky with no discernible objects, there is nothing to point to or grasp at. Thus it is too with this self that I have tried to find but could not. When we engage in this investigation correctly, we'll really be able to see how it's so effective at stopping the arising of unpleasant or unhelpful feelings, wandering or unwholesome thoughts, mental projections, and so forth. So then we think that if there's no findable, pinpointable self, just like with empty space, does that lack of findability mean that there is no self at all? In fact, it means that there is no self existing from its own side. It does not mean that there is no self at all, because there is a self or an I that experiences happiness, that experiences suffering, that eats food, that wears clothes, and so forth. So we can think that although there is no findable self existing from its own side, within these 6 elements, earth, water, fire, wind, space, and consciousness, there is a self that we can identify as a dependent designation in dependence upon those elements. So as we engage in these analytical meditations, we should have this feeling that, oh, these 2 truths, relative and ultimate, this is a really interesting thing to investigate. So the holy beings actually, they recommend that one of the sort of preliminary kind of investigations to do, the best object to use is a book, because when we pick up a book like Geshe is holding right now, it seems like, okay, there is like a pinpointable, solidly existing book there, right? That arises to the mind. And it's the same when we think of the self, or we think of the I, right? When we first think about that, there seems like there's like a pretty solidly existing, identifiable thing there. But when we open the book and then we sort of start to isolate each of its parts, like the front cover, the various pages, the back cover, the spine, and so forth, we see that each of those, there's no pinpointable book within those. So this is a really good example, and we can see how, the body, we can see how the self of persons, it's arising in very much the same way. So how does this style of meditation incorporate the two truths? The lack of findability of an I or a self existing from its own side, this is the ultimate truth. The fact that there is a self or an I that can be designated in dependence upon these various parts coming together, this is relative truth. Right. And when you're doing this type of analytical meditation, it's important to kind of do it in a sequence. So for example, if you're doing it on the basis of the 5 skandhas, the 5 aggregates, and you say, okay, I've looked and there's no findable self within the form aggregate, then you set aside the form aggregate and you move on to the next, feelings. And you don't keep switching between the two, right? You go in sequence. So this process too of investigation means that once you've sort of really gone deeply into investigating and coming to a conclusion based upon scripture's reasoning and your meditation, that there is no pinpointable, findable self within the form aggregate, then you set that aside, right? You set that aside, okay, because that's been investigated. Because the problem is that if you don't do it like this, what happens is you set aside the form aggregate, then you move on to the next thing, and then you think, okay, well, wait a second, got to go back to the form aggregate. Because you're constantly shifting between things, not going in sequence, you're not going to be able to have like that holistic understanding of emptiness. It's a little bit like if someone tells you that there's a dangerous snake in your house, right? You want to be systematic about trying to locate it. So once you've looked under the bed, then you start on the cupboards. You don't look under the bed, go to the cupboards for a little bit, and then go back to the bed again, right? You want to be systematic about it. So that was the preliminary meditation and remarks. So let us now begin with the prayers. Excuse me. Sorry. Tumba chom den de jin sheba dra chom ba yan da bar zo be song ge ba dang shab su dem ba Deva Rje
sheba jiden gemba kebu duwe kalo gyorwa lana meba ladam in hamgi temba sangye chom dende begyawa shakya tubala chaselo chede kyabsu chi ho temba chomdende deshin sheba drachomba yang daba zobe sangye sheba dang shabsu demba dewa sheba jiten chemba chebu dewe kalo jorwa lana meba ladam inamgi temba sangye chomdende bejawa shakya tubala chaselo chede kyausu chi ho temba chomdende deshin sheba drachomba yang daba zobe sangye sheba dang shabsu demba dewa sheba jiden chemba chebu dewe kalo jorwa lana meba ladam inamgi temba sangye chomdende bejawa shakya tubala chaselo chede kyausu chi ho. The mandala offering. So ji peki ji medo jang rija linji ni de gyamba di sangye jinda me de bowa gi jogu nanda jin la chepa sho idam guru ratna mendala ka niryatayami. Refuge with bodhicitta. Chedon sogi chenam la jangcho badu dani kyasu chi chenyen gibe sonam gi jola penche sangye jopa sho Chedon sogi chenam la jangcho badu dani kyasu chi dagi chenyen gibe sonam gi jola penche sangye jopa sho Chedon sogi chenam la jangchu bardu dani kyabsu chi dagi chenyen gibe senam gi jola penshir sangye joba sho. Los.
Oya ta nazo gewa ko she ba ta ru so so ni pa chembo cha ku yare to chembo cha ku yare ta ja su ba chi zo ku yare.
So all of us, we need to be able to identify the potentials within us. We need to bring forth the power to activate those potentials, and we need to do this in a vast way.
O ta sha to ge se inare ta ni pa me wa zo ya inare o ta ko ro pa ge ni pa chimbo chaya zo ji de da 동반이 zo yo ba de da so so ji mo bo to ya ba ta che so ka
And so when we talk about being able to bring forth and maintain virtuous minds and also preventing the decline of virtuous minds, one of the first things to really understand is that the power of those virtuous minds is greatly enhanced by an understanding, by the cultivation of emptiness. And so, in terms when we speak about emptiness, for a beginner, it's a perfectly valid question to think, well, how does meditating or thinking about emptiness, how does that possibly work in terms of purifying negative karma, for example? And this is because cultivating emptiness is the direct antidote to the mindset with which those negativities were accumulated. In other words, gongda samlo tangtang kandesre?
가르쳐가. 랭연바 쏴키가. 랭연바 쏴비가 세나마나 용거로 왔어. 지체 야반다고 저거 왔어.
Dimarikbares.
지체 야만 왔어.
Right. So, because what deceives us into sort of being compelled into those negative actions is a mindset which thinks that those actions are correct. And this mindset which sees what is unwholesome as correct is necessarily connected to ignorance. And the antidote to ignorance is emptiness.
소소 콤바나로 이니면서 티파 뭐뭐시 사고요나. 당 안저 샴바고니 지고대한테 티파 되는 요 과야가.
Yeah. So let's think of the example of a house with a leaky roof. Our method practices of like love, compassion, even bodhicitta, these are like pots that are sitting underneath the spots in the roof that are leaking. Meditation on emptiness is like the person who you call to repair your roof at the very source of the leak. So then we understand, right, that this engagement in unwholesome karma was mistaken because the very mindsets that compelled it are completely mistaken. This is a very powerful purification. Ale, right. So if we are able to engage in our activities of virtue with the thought that even these activities are not naturally or inherently existent, the nice thing is that the virtues accumulated in that mindset with that awareness of emptiness cannot be as easily diminished by anger, for example. Yeah. So it's like you can put in a chemical that enhances the color of a fabric so that the luster of the color is never lost. That is like what this awareness of emptiness does with our other virtuous practices and positive qualities. So emptiness really functions in this way to not only protect the virtuous karmas and so forth that we have accumulated from degenerating, but it also ensures that some of the potential of that virtue can abide until it brings forth a fully ripened result. You know, certainly when we think about also difficult feelings that arise, and especially, right, false thinking, often translated as mental projections, emptiness is a very effective antidote to these as well. That's clear. Yeah. And even in our Vajrayana or tantric practices, when we are engaging in the visualizations, for example, of clearing the impurities of the space and the environment before being able to arise the deity and their mandala, this is also done on the basis of emptiness. So it definitely has a big relationship to all the practices that we do. So we'll just take a moment then to meditate, to bring forth a motivation now. So we can think that in this way the body is straight, in this way the chakras are straight, and the winds or the prana can move freely.
maybe say to Sowata, no kitchen Banuipa, or Luyandoyo, somewhat.
Think any difficult feelings and thoughts and so forth that are arising, just let them be like clouds that float across the sky. With a gentle breeze, they're cleared away. And to sort of tap into the neutral or equanimous nature of the fundamental mind, let us take our awareness to the breath. Breathing in, I'm aware I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I'm aware I'm breathing out.
Maybe just on Muji, so Chomeba, the level and Yachushu, the passing over us, the Nojimato, the Pomebas.
So when the wind stops blowing across the surface of the ocean, even if within the ocean there are minnows that are swimming about, they do not disturb the surface of the water. So this is the way to handle those discursive thoughts.
Chilele, Jan Zuma Chapan, Mujista, Lise Zuma, or that Lutukanga Yabuchaso.
So think from relaxing my thoughts in this way, then the body and mind are different than before. They are clear and unencumbered.
Say, oh, Yabotapa, Goshenina. Roa Sulatawa Yunayata, near Matata, Montanitan in Etekita, Okuzachi Jume, so on.
And on the basis of the vastness of this fundamental mind, extend an awareness that every single migrating sentient being we could possibly encounter is actually precious and close to us. There's not a single one that I could point to and say that they are undesirable or unworthy.
Yo me payonzo, Dumasa Dutana Jamar, Dumasa Dutana Yaga, Gawala, Soba, Chini Hakazita, E.G.
Think how wonderful it would be if every single one of those sentient beings, without exception, was separated from the three types of suffering and the causes of those three types of suffering. So bring forth that compassion, really thinking, may it be so that they are separated from those three sufferings. How wonderful it is. May I help them be separated from those three sufferings. Think how wonderful it would be, though, if I could actually help them remove those sufferings. But I'm limited at the moment. What type of being is able to work with them to remove suffering effectively? Only a fully enlightened Buddha. Therefore, may I achieve Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Bring forth bodhicitta. And think of it in terms of the king-like bodhicitta. I will achieve enlightenment first and lead them there. So thank you. Not Dave. So Dave, I think I might need your technical advice just from one of them. I'm sorry, everybody, to interrupt, but I'm not able to toggle the original sound for musicians on and off anymore. Does that mean I need to go into like the audio settings and do it? Yeah? Okay, let me see. And so I should go to noise removal default, correct, Dave?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. Did that enhance the audio quality at all?
It did. It did.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I know what to do. Usually you can toggle it right at the top.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
not working for some reason.
Okay.
Those again. Sorry, Geshe. Geshe says that if Kedrick gets tired of translating, he can always find something else to do. I was just hoping to enhance y'all experience of the sound. Sorry, my bad. So the thing to keep in mind here too, like when we talk about all of these different ways of thinking, right? We can say like, how is it, right, that I can bring forth these better ways of thinking and really change? Well, part of the reason is that those unwholesome thoughts and ways of thinking lack inherent existence, and it is for that reason that they can be cleared away. So we have to start with something happy and hopeful, because a lot of the text is going to be a little on the heavy side. So buckle up, folks. So we will be now we will turn to the text. Jipa ane ngachana nishu. Ale nishu chi krebe datare detsam kuna nyongyur. Oh, sorry. Kechi kikche. So we are in chapter 4. In the version I have from Bachelor, it is on page 14, and we are at verse 21. Yes. And this is the mindfulness chapter. Bachelor gives it as attending to the spirit of awakening. That's kind of like the subheading, but it is the mindfulness chapter. And Geshe is just saying mindfulness. Remember, we defined it as being careful, being cautious. So Geshe said that this mindfulness, this attitude of being careful, we can think of an easy example of somebody who's trying to guard their health. If we're trying to guard our health, we're very careful about what we eat and drink, for example, what we put in our body. So there's many different types of mindfulness, kind of many different places where mindfulness can be applied. Mindfulness based upon the body, mindfulness based upon the mind, and beyond. So a lot of the advice that's happening in this particular text is telling us, as we're going about various activities, how to identify whether mindfulness is present or not. So that's part of the discussion. Verse 21, if even by the evil of one instant an eon may be spent in the deepest hell, then because of the evil I have gathered since beginningless time, what need to mention my not going to a happy realm?
춘추 깨치지 리바 셰바지 이나요.
Mhm.
다때 다가지 자자바이나.
Mhm.
다코 녀마지 니 자서 자자자 요 페네라
Mhm.
디가 녀와 나면 로야 저는 로야 요.
So what this is explaining is how even like a relatively small unwholesome deed or sin, if we are not mindful of it and we do not confess it, because of the quality of the magnification or increase of karma, it is possible that slowly that misdeed gains in its negative power and is enough to lead us to the lower realms without respite.
다 던지나 다 디밥 다 나도 로메 봐서 쇼로 그러was. 다 던지 먹어서 그때 다 된다. 간디스 가는 그래.
So if we accumulate many heavy misdeeds without confessing them, then how can we possibly hope to go to a happy realm?
그래서 다 던지를 따와 이나에 다 간조 그다 마세테 할래야 다 가서래요 막다. 사정버렸어.
And when we look from this perspective too, the other thing is it helps us realize like, wow, how fortunate we are with the life and the circumstances that we have right now.
다 대지보 말다스. 다 게이쇼라 이지바레스. 빼나 손지 예수 가라. 가시 그랬더니 개와야 벌써 개와디 여보 뭐냐라. 때마 찾아 때문에 가라. 술로 같이 그 동반이 또 왜야들이 먹는 거 좋았어.
But Geshe wants to say also that this magnification and increase happens with wholesome or positive karma as well. And so this is why, for example, there were various beings who during, I think it's Usung is Buddha Kashyapa, if I'm mistaken, someone please let me know. So during the time of Buddha Kashyapa, right, there were beings that cultivated virtuous practices. Because they cultivated those virtues and those were magnified, when Shakyamuni Buddha came into the world in subsequent lifetimes and they met him, they could reach realization just from hearing one short verse of Dharma.
다 개와야 더 써봐지. 얼서 아니었더니 다 두바시면 이렇게 개와야 보고. 아까서 다 던질라 때는 다 녀마치 던들면서 로자 몸으로 커서로 그러was 개와 추천로.
So what happens here, right, is the being engages in the virtuous practice, even if that does not bring forth realizations. They dedicate the merit of that practice. This means that the merit can magnify and continue to increase year after year and even lifetime after lifetime, so that it becomes a very powerful potential, which can lead to that realization from just hearing one verse.
단지바지 어느 몰도 단들 한적도 알렌적도와
Loso.
대조 코나 다 녀시다니바.
Yeah.
대조 코나 녀전에 너는 대조 코나 녀전에 너는 너타 먼저때 But
having experienced merely that, I shall still not be liberated. For while it is being experienced, other evil will be extensively produced. Right. So if we look at beings in other realms, like we can think of animals, for instance, when animals endure a difficult experience of suffering, if just experiencing that suffering would be enough to purify and remove all of the causality behind it and they could be liberated, then that wouldn't be such a serious state of affairs, right? But the problem is actually that that's often not how it happens in practice. The experience of suffering can make them even more disturbed, so that the suffering actually becomes a driver of more negative actions, which become the causes of more future suffering. So we can see many, not just animals, but also human beings who become set in such patterns. It's very sad. Loso. 23. So if, when having found leisure such as this, I do not attune myself to what is wholesome, there could be no greater deception, and there could be no greater folly. Kande semchuk chaya? Chuck, like tempo double check. Ale, loso. Yeah. Yeah. So Geshe said that he likes to be gentle, but verses like this, the thing is, like our minds are very stubborn and irascible. Like in some ways, they're like a stone or like a piece of metal. And it's very hard to change that. And so sometimes we need some strong words to actually give us the impetus to start the process of change. Listen, Ale, listen. Ale, loso. Yeah. Huh? Oh, plaster. Yeah. Yeah. Hagoson. Yeah. Akonso shape la tene duru drogi resta. Yeah. Loso. Yeah, so Geshe was just mentioning that, and sometimes like powerful images can also be like an exhortation for us to improve. So he was thinking about a previous geku, a discipline master at Sera Monastery, and that geku kongama chigya desu rebe. Right. So now he's actually teaching in the West, but before he was the geku, the discipline master at Sera. And so he, part of the discipline master's job is to give these talks, which are basically like, I don't want to use the word scolding, they're admonishments. That's a better word. They're admonishments to the Sangha community. And so what he told them is, in addition to your studies, you have to be ethical and practice, because if you just study and aren't ethical and never practice, it is just like throwing little drops of water onto cement. All it's going to do is harden. So, Geshe thought that was actually like a very sort of description. Yeah, so the danger is, right, like we can study the teachings very thoroughly, but if we never apply them, the danger is that it's possible they never become a source of transformation. Right. Oh, yes. Jola double cheek. Yeah. Right. So the other example that's given is don't be like a bag of butter with the teachings. I'm sure some of you folks have heard this one before. So, in Tibet, you didn't have a plastic bag. So it was a leather bag that would hold the butter. But because the bag was holding the butter all the time, the leather became totally oversaturated and unable to absorb any moisture, and it can actually harden. So don't become like that. Yeah, so like when we study and listen and get new information, it shouldn't be just like a process of like, okay, got it, know that, right? We have to apply. We have to really try to apply the things that we hear. Yeah, and the danger too, right, is if we never apply, but we just amass the information, then that could also contribute to our pride. This also happens with some people who study the Dharma, so we have to be careful about this as well. Yeah, this. Tawasana?
Tawa, did. Tawa
Nishitasum ale. Siktambo roa didi dalwa nyarles. Yeah, loso dene. Ale dawa delwa ale loso. Sorry. I wasn't sure what he was saying. I got it now. My apologies. So it's this word delwa, right, which is leisure. And Geshe is saying that, He said that I said Delwa in Tibetan, so to correct his pronunciation. I didn't say it to correct his pronunciation at all. I just said it to let him know I had understood what he was trying to convey. My apologies. I didn't mean it like that, honest. Anyways, leisure means leisure. Yeah, no, last one. Leisure means a state where we can achieve anything that we wish, right? Where we can achieve anything that we set our mind to. So if having achieved leisure, right, this state which can allow us to reach anywhere we want to reach, then if we do not engage in practice, there is no greater deception, no greater waste than this. We're cheating ourselves.
So
if when we speak about meditating on virtue, meditation means to habituate ourselves to. So if we don't use this opportunity to engage in hearing, contemplation, and meditation on what is wholesome, this is a lost opportunity. So actually, accumulating virtue is the easy part. Well, more or less, we can say it is the easier part. Having a leisure such as the one we have now, we really want to go for it and actually try to bring forth those realizations, right? That should really be the hope. So there's no kind of greater self-deception, Geshe was saying. There's no kind of greater simply cheating of oneself than this, than not using this opportunity. So Geshe said verse 23, it's kind of a heavy verse, but it is very deep and profound in meaning and potentially really transformative, actually. Think about if someone were to steal like $10 or $15 or $20 out of your wallet, how angry and indignant and cheated you would feel about just losing $20. So the deception that's happening here, not trying to use this opportunity, is a far worse form of cheating than that. And the irony of it is, we're the one that's cheating ourselves in this instance. And if, having understood this, I still foolishly continue to be slothful, when the hour of death arrives, tremendous grief will rear its head. Yeah. So, this is the danger, and it's trying to warn us of this pattern of kind of like when we hear the teachings or understand something, we think like, okay, understand, got it. But then we never apply it. We never try to practice it. And then when the time of death comes, it will be too late. Yeah. So like always saying like, I'll do it tomorrow. So I forgot that part. I'll do it tomorrow, right? This is not excessive. This is not kind of acceptable, right? And even if we're in the later part of our life, we still are going to do as much as we can. If we don't try to apply the teachings and practice while we still can, then it's definitely the case that when the time of death comes, we're going to have a mind tainted by regret. Yeah. So Geshe said, I think it's in the Lam Rim text, there's that famous saying from one of the great masters who said, do next year's work this year, do next month's work this month, and do tomorrow's work today. That's how we want to be with our virtuous practice. Notice. Then, if my body blazes for a long time in the unbearable flames of hell, inevitably my mind will be tormented by the fires of unendurable remorse.
단단 가서 어다 멀리 옆에가 초초를 중앙 부모 퓨처 버레드가 강을 간지는 거든.
Yeah, yeah.
초초를 나빠때는 멜로 되는 간지는 거죠. 디디가 다 대지 배신을 다 어느냐이 메시아 대지 되거든.
So this kind of unendurable remorse that we're thinking in that sort of being tormented, we can just reflect, like if we even just get like a little bit of a chill in our body, how uncomfortable that feels. Or even if we just burn a little part of our hand, like on a candle flame, how uncomfortable that feels.
그래서 다 디디가 다 다시 하면서.
Sorry? Can we do a mute? Thank you.
그래서 그래서 다연되는 어떤 또 정보지는 알아서 다 정보권이 지고 전지 세고 또 많이 거는 새 도와 알레비가나 전지 선바 새 도와르지 세제가 된다라 야와 나면 까오모 버데가는 코도 제와지가 들리니 바지요.
But let's be clear too, right? When we practice love, compassion, and bring forth bodhicitta, if we do that, and we are able to reach a high level of practice, if we become a high-level bodhisattva, we can make the aspiration to be born in hell and work for the sentient beings that are being tormented there without experiencing any torment ourselves. Again? Lama Chibana. So that's the kind of powerful bodhicitta that these bodhisattvas bring forth, that they can even stay in the unendurable hell for as long as it is necessary. I'm just getting some notifications. Did we get like a Zoom bomb or something, or was it just like somebody put the okay, cool? No, I just want to make sure everything's okay. We're all good then. We'll continue. Let's.
다 니시다주바.
Let's.
진짜니까 펜비 살. 제시다 되니에 다니 시도 대제도 신용나와 대치나.
Having found by some coincidence this beneficial state that is so hard to find, if now, while able to discriminate, I once again am led into the hell, into the, I think it says bells here, but it means hells.
Yeah.
Ignore. Yeah. Yeah. So from some sort of precious thing that we found in a precious jewel that we found in a previous lifetime, we now have this precious human body. So from this kind of extraordinary virtue that we accumulated in a previous life, we now have this human form. And in fact, just coming across this human form is far more significant than by some coincidence finding a precious jewel in the road. So it's because of our previous exertion in the kindness of our previous exertion in our previous lifetime that we have this situation now. And so how amazing is it that that provided us with this opportunity to be able to understand the Dharma, to be able to hear the Dharma, and to be able to study the Dharma. So then if we have this understanding and this knowledge of this beneficial state that we have right now, right? Then yeah. But even so, even with this awareness, if we continue to engage with what is unwholesome, this could lead us to the lower states. Karin sena shloka din so ni nyamdu logo gire du achitan ni sachutan ni sadin nyamdu yong gire. Yeah, I was saying to Geshe that I think that this. Right. Okay. All right. So verse 27 now. Ni sadin logo.
ngwa ji mu ba shi ba ji da lan de se me de se ji mu da ju ma shi de da ki kuna ji shi yo.
Then, as though I were hypnotized by a spell, I shall reduce this mind to nothing. Even I do not know what is causing me confusion, what is there dwelling inside me.
Ta de se ga des. Ta tan ji ne se tan sha wa ma de shama de no ro sa ra ji kan ga ha ko gi la. Nga ro su ge wa ma de.
Yep.
Ma ge shu la ta nga ma no ji de ba ina.
Yep.
Ha ka sa ra.
Yep.
Ta ngwa ga pa nga ro su ne ngwa ta ne ta nyong ba zo na ba cha di ba.
So this is quite a clear sort of thing that is being stated here. If we have conviction and knowledge about past and future lifetimes and about how karma impacts those, and yet we continue to engage with what is unwholesome, this is like a normally sort of sane person being driven to insane actions through the power of kind of, Geshe uses the word a negative mantra. So like having a spell cast upon us.
This one? Ta nga ro su me jen da ji cho ro me se ya re da la shi nga no ro ma de ba. Cho ro se ya re.
Oh yeah, right. And so if somebody says to us like, hello, is there anybody home? Like if we're not paying attention, like, do you have a mind or something? We normally get very upset. Right, if someone says something like that to us. So when someone's getting frustrating with you, they'll be like, is anybody home? Are the lights on? Is there a brain in there somewhere? And this is like very insulting, right? And we'll get very upset about this. But yet our knowledge and our lack of implementing it, it's almost as if we are like this sometimes. Domje dabo kandes chiritis.
Daki kuna jishi yos, nesel no living no carionas.
So why is it then that there is this ghost-like thing that is dwelling inside us that is hindering us? We must engage in the virtuous practices. So 28. So, although enemies such as hatred and craving have neither any arms nor legs, and are neither courageous nor wise, how have I been used like a slave by them? Yeah. So if somebody said to us, if one of our friends said to us, come by my place tomorrow and I need you to be my servant for the whole day, we'd be pretty annoyed, right? If someone said that to us. Yeah, we would be offended and we would probably say something pretty sharp back to them, whatever we needed to say. So attachment, anger, ignorance, and so forth, these are not beings with arms and legs that can physically subdue us or force us to do something. However, because of how we kind of leave them to their devices within our mind, they're like there in a very stable way, compelling our behavior and actions without us really knowing. In effect, they've made us their servant not just for a day, for our entire life, and not just for this lifetime, for all previous lifetimes, and also the ones to come, if we're not careful. Yeah. So, now we Lentiam just did on the caritis, Comason. Right. And until now, we haven't come forth with an answer. We haven't responded or retaliated against attachment, anger, and so forth. 29. For while they dwell within my mind, at their pleasure they cause me harm. Yet yet I patiently endure them without any anger. But this is an inappropriate and shameful time for patience.
다 간조 다 노이 녀모 먹고 또니 간조 제바 고사가 예텔 제바 먹고 제바 고사 많이 받을 제바 고니 다 챈들 먹게 시간 가디나 그래서 되디가래.
So we are kind of confused, right, in terms of how we are practicing with our mind. In instances such as this, where it is not appropriate to be patient, we are patient. And then in other situations where patience actually is required, we are not able to bring it forth.
다 대시시와 거기도와 다 강강다라 가디나 간노도서 당간조 예 니야데케자
Losa.
디피 주보지는 거 라디오 요케지 노지는 거 말했어. 거 가디나 게치지자가 로바치아나 지용이야.
So it's important to understand how the afflictions deceive us, right? They're a little bit like harmful friends. We don't identify harmful friends by them having horns on their head. They won't have horns on their head. And also harmful friends come into our lives usually saying sweet words or proposing fun things. And this is how we become entrapped.
다 티베트의 누지 누구 세 년모 박 셰도든 대자도 셰도라 소바 대다기 소소로 로바치가 요바라고 자고서 나도 그거 저기야.
So actually, minds like attachment and anger in particular, they are with us all the time because they have deceived us into thinking that they are actually helpful. So when we talk about meditation on patience in this instance, that would be an unwholesome kind of patience. It is not the time to be patient with the afflictions. Yeah, so really all of these verses, you know, they're heavy, but we shouldn't have like a personal reaction to it. They're general advices, which if we apply them are going to be very helpful to us. 숨쉬담 순소식 냠주래. 알레.
다원은 됐고요. 연도로 그래.
Yeah, 냠주래. then don't ask about
말아.
No? Okay. Should even all the gods and anti-gods rise up against me as my enemies, they could not lead nor place me in the roaring fires of hell. So these are true words, and Geshe said actually hopeful if we think about it. You can think about the truth of this. There's no human being, animal, and even these unseen beings that people are so afraid of all the time. Even if every single sentient being kind of formed an army, they would not be powerful enough to drag us into hell. There's nobody who can do that to us. Yeah, so like, and you know, on that basis, even the person who gives us difficulties in this lifetime, we label them as an enemy. But really, the problems that they can cause us are not so significant in this context. Yeah, so we're going to leave it here. So Geshe said, of course, we say leave it here. We're leaving it here for this iteration of Bodhisattvacaryāvatāra, but as we go through the cycle of the next three texts, we'll come back to it. So Geshe said that he wants to stop it here because this is a nice hopeful verse, because it shows us actually that others are never so powerful that they can drag us into a negative destiny. And also in this way, if this is the case, there's no person that we can really point to and say that they're a true enemy, at least when we consider the context. If we start thinking about the reasonings behind verses like this, we can see how every sentient being, every human, every animal is not separated from us, is close to us is worthy, precious, and has great potential. And it is only through interacting with them that we can bring forth qualities, necessary qualities, such as love, compassion, and so on.
다 니네 머젠다 지강에 대해서는 기본 니네 매나 소소소소가 노고 니모텔 다 레치테 더바이나 어느 파쇼 될라요 니몬 레체도야 고체도야 그래서 뭐지
Parlante goedi medrogires, mi pardela.
니모 소소 니모
Right.
니모 강갈 레도야 소소 니모 레체소나
Kali sundan kuchi.
나도 강에 니네 레체요나 소소가 지금 니모 대초 공조
Yeah. Yeah. Right. So if instead of responding in anger to the person who upsets us, if what we respond to is the afflictions within us that drive these circumstances, then we'll really have given to the retaliation to the object where it is effective, to the afflictions. So our main task actually through practice is to give an answer back, right? Is to propose an antidote to the afflictions, both within others and within ourselves. Okay. So we are going now to the next book. No, it was going very fast, so I was trying to keep up. I needed a breath for a moment. Okay. Kawaju Tana.
Oh yeah, 좋았죠.
좋았죠.
제체봐.
김sen chuparwa.
제체봐.
Loso.
무슨? 내가 출라 싫어. 걔나.
Yeah. Depa mena rigpa yapo yena didonda roa. La loso.
제체봐 좋아.
Yeah.
대바 출라 싫어. 걔나. 가시 캔도 좋아.
So we are on page 70, the 10 ways to go astray. When your trust is feeble but your intelligence sharp, you can stray into being a propagator of platitudes.
예송아, 왔다 대화 매바지. tani 오티바 샬테 가고 할레비타니 타카디나 텔은 거거잖아.
Yeah.
요녀가 모아지마도 tani 여보차야 가버래.
So what this is actually saying is it's a critique, right? If we don't have faith or confidence enough to apply the teachings, but we just get stuck into intellectual debates, then this is very dangerous and we can become somebody who is just speaking empty words. Right. And this is reminding Geshe of in the Tantra class recently, we talked about the 4 factors which allow the arising of siddhis or attainments. And one of these is depa, faith or confidence. I usually like to translate it as the word confidence because I feel faith has like a lot of baggage in English. So I'll say confidence. But Geshe says, he wants to give the caveat that actually both are important, right? We want to engage with intelligence and study and develop understanding as well as maintain this confidence in the teachings, right? It's important to have both of these in place. Because if the place where we put our faith or confidence is mistaken, if we don't study, we'll have less of a way of knowing that. And if we place our faith and confidence somewhere that's mistaken, we can easily be led astray and harmed. So we have to be careful. Yep. So this is interesting. The translator here is saying when your trust is strong, but your intelligence weak. Yes. So he's doing faith as trust. I like that. Okay. So yeah, let's stick with trust. When your trust is strong, but your intelligence weak, you can stray into closed-minded stubbornness. Yep. So the problem here is the opposite one, right? When all that we have is our trust or faith, but we don't engage with the teachings with intelligence, then we just become more superstitious and narrow-minded, right? Which is not the point of the teaching.
싫어 매나 토야데 노지 노소나 토야 매바칠 어서 자네 다 보여 레카치야 지바 찬도요.
And actually, because if we lack intelligence too, it's very difficult to identify what the actual object of attainment is, and to be able to reach it, it's very difficult to make progress.
치엘라 동아 매나 시에도 고사 초와이.
When your perseverance is great, but you lack the oral instructions, you can stray into mistakes and pitfalls.
어단저게 와서 용어다 동아 이니메다 람바시다 다 간주 노와이나 가스바 콩크조데 소지조된데 다 이니메다 지바타타지 매나
Right.
아니 피타바츠리요.
So Geshe is saying our study and practice of both sutra and tantra, it's very important to receive those oral instructions, but he wants to add here that if those oral instructions are not connected with a kung, a valid source in the teachings or the pronouncements of the Buddha, they might not be so reliable. So we have to be careful there as well.
다 저왕에 티소지 정도 맞잖아. 곰 맘비시에초도 초와이.
No, sir. When you don't first dispel misconceptions through learning and reflection, your meditation can stray into perception spheres of ignorant darkness.
어다 티소 고 할래를 같이 뭐래. 다라와 이나요 다고 같이 뭐래서 또 뭐네 고 집을 뭐 어수자대바이나. 티소니 때문에 문제는 고 같은 거.
So what this is warning is, of course, meditation is extremely important, right? But we talk about hearing, contemplation, and meditation. If prematurely we devote ourselves only to meditation without prior training in hearing and contemplation, then it's a danger that meditation can become a source of darkness rather than knowledge.
같은 것만 가지고 시작하지 마서 그걸 사실 리지라 드시면 봐서네라 야 드시면 봐
Yeah.
타마타마 만도위가 오당가 쳐도 선지마도
Ale sukme kamgila di, right? Sukamgila. Ale, right. So Geshe said that, and also a possible impact of meditating prematurely without knowledge, we can be reborn as, and he's speaking about a specific kind of deva, a celestial being in the form realm. And the characteristic of this deva is that they're just kind of in a total state of darkness, blissful, but darkness. The awareness only comes when, okay, I've been born in this realm, and then it's just like all darkness and bliss. And then they come to the end, and it's like, oh, I'm about to fall from that realm. So there's like no thought whatsoever that's arising in their mind, and it can even go like that for the equivalent of hundreds of years. This is the danger of not training in hearing and contemplation as well as meditation. Right. So what happens is people, and this is really a danger that you see a lot, right? People lack training in hearing or contemplation. Here it says learning and reflection, but we usually say hearing and contemplation, right? And then they just go into meditation. And the kind of meditation they're doing is just one that is kind of placing the mind in darkness or stillness. And the result of that can be a lot of problems. This is a nice one, yeah. When you don't have an authentic understanding into the realm of experience, you can stray into being an insensitive spiritual expert. And the inverted commas that are there, I love the translator that did this because it really reflects how the Tibetan sounds. Yeah, so it just warning along the same vein, right? If you have like a lot of study, but you never apply any of that study in practice, then you're in danger of becoming like that spiritual expert. When you don't train your mind in great compassion, the method aspect, your path can stray into that of the lesser vehicles. So there's a story of Lord Atisha encountering one of his colleagues from India, and when he was in Tibet, right? And so then he asked his colleague from India, well, what's like happening in India these days? What's happening at the monastery?
tani nesi ya chenpo chela ngwa nyole sheke chiga temega lo tolo toba chi tani siya nesi shungi.
And he said one strange thing that happened is a practitioner of the Vajrayana actually achieved the Hinayana path, the Shravakayana path of seeing.
Deswa ode to joji ja levin ja watapo. Hako sara sena chenpo shonela ni shomba to ni je tsawa chi bi shonju ji sete men me biga chela tene ta te shunare.
And Atisha felt a great sorrow, and he said, this is clear that with the wisdom he did not train in bodhicitta, which is rooted in the minds of love and compassion, and this is a great loss.
Oda tende ho sekin duas, oda ni jimena, tani oda pagila temelo do yavi ta tani ware.
So if you don't have this factor of compassion, right, then our practice becomes a Shravakayana, an individual liberation practice.
Oda tani ji za ni ji chenpo to na, ane teba chenpi ri sepa.
So if we, on the other hand, are able to bring forth great compassion, then we are said to have activated the Mahāyāna lineage within ourselves.
Shonju ji se ka di to so na teba chenpi gol shuba.
And when we are able to arise bodhicitta, we are said to have actually stepped into the door of the Mahāyāna path.
Oda tengwa la yung tse tagaru res, teba chenpi gol mbiyu to ma ju se re, donga ni ga shonju ji se koro koro yara was, te to na, teba chenpi gol shuba res.
And entering the path of Mahāyāna, this is the same whether we are in the Mahāyāna or Vajrayana practice. We can only be said to have truly entered the path when bodhicitta has arisen.
Lama zonka be loro chenpo no la, ndani gungi gol mbiyu to njugo no shonju ji se kona gos.
Dunni, losa. Yep.
Ngwa do ngwa ni ka teba chenpo.
Yep.
Gol shu ma shu de.
Yep.
Shonju ji se to ma to tagaru no chenpo.
And so Lama Tsongkhapa said the two vehicles of a sutra and tantra, whether one has entered the path of practice, this is determined by whether one has brought forth bodhicitta.
Oda tanda shirin so so ta page deshi ga ta nine ku ta go chenpo chinon zo chaware dile so na
Deki.
deshi go chenpo chinon zo chaware was.
And when we step into that door with the arising of bodhicitta, we're also very much stepping through the door of happiness.
Oda nganzo kanga jibare yo ta ma chen del ka se tata ta shong ji se no ta ni wo. To ne to we shira ta ni wo ta to chan do hale yar was.
So that means that what can we do to make our lives worthwhile? Draw closer and closer to bodhicitta, draw closer and closer to emptiness, and if we can even realize these, then that is the best outcome.
Oya tu che ta ga bi man ga.
So thank you very much. With a mind lifted up in joy, let us dedicate the merits. And because we are kind of pausing this text before we move on in a couple of weeks to the new one, we'll do a short mandala to conclude. Saji Bagi Joshi Medo Jang Rira Linji Ni Jenpadi Sangi Jindo Mede Buwagi Roku Nanda Jinla Juba Sho Idam Guru Ratna Meda Lakam Niriyata Yami Jangshu Semshu Rinpoche Maje Banam Chejo Chi Chewa Nyamba Meba Yang Gone Gondu Bewa Sho Tongni Tawa Rinpoche Maje Banam Chejoji Chewa Nyamba Meba Yang Gone Gondu Bewa Sho Jambel Pao Jida Kyamba Dang Kundu Zambo Deon Dejinte Deda Kungi Jesu Daro Che Gewa Dida Tongshe Rabdu Ngo Dusun Shebe Gewa Tongshe Gi Ngowa Gamla Chodu Ngabade Dagi Gebe Tsawa Digo Gyang Zambo Cheji Rabdu Ngowa Gi Gangri Rawe Kowe Shinkam Di Pendan Dewa Malu Jangwe Ne Chenre Ziwan Tenzin Jaso Yi Shabe Side Badu Tenjo Chi.
Roro so so ga tane gewa tisse de so pa ge zawa la te ne. Ane ta roro so 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 ma no ji ta yi de pu so ba de to ya ta jil do wa ji.
Through the virtuous karmas I have accumulated in this session and all my roots of virtue, may I be able to accomplish the welfare of sentient beings just as I wish. So through these merits, may the wars, illnesses, all of the negative thoughts and actions and so forth in this world, may these be completely purified, cleared away, and may there be peace. So thinking mainly about His Holiness the Dalai Lama, but also of all fully qualified Kalyana Mitra spiritual friends, wherever they abide, may they be able to have long and healthy lives, and may all of their intentions to benefit others be fulfilled without obstacle. And even those beings who may be less well known, who may be less realized from a conventional perspective, even those simple beings who dedicate their lives to bringing benefit to others, who dedicate their lives to showing compassion to others, may all of their activities be completely flourished without obstacle. So we will pause there. I just need to take a sip of water. So, of course, if you need to get on with your day after the dedication, feel free. But if you'd like to stick around for questions, you are most welcome. And on that note, if anyone has a question, you are very welcome to ask it. Yeah. Oh, so Geshe said one thing he wanted to mention. I think I did mention it, but maybe I forgot. So it's good to say it again. Is that when we start the Kamala Shila's stages of meditation, which is going to be the second Sunday in November, along with that, on the first iteration of that topic, Geshe will give the transmission of the 21 praises to Tara. And as we go through stages of meditation, our side topic will be, so just like Gampopa, the side topic will be a commentary on the 21 praises of Tara. So he just wants to make sure everyone knows that. And so I see a hand, I believe it's Jonathan, but I can't see that far away. So I think if it's you, Jonathan, is it? Okay, yeah, go ahead, Jonathan.
Hi, morning.
Good morning.
Everyone. Hi, Geshe. Hi, Kadrap. Thank you for today's teachings.
You're very welcome.
I'm curious about the habituation for the afflictions. What is that referred to in Tibetan? What's the name for it?
So I guess I have to answer that one. So afflictions is nyomong, and habituation to the afflictions is gom. Nyomong, gom shakpa means to be habituated to the afflictions. And so it's worthy to note that the word that is translated in habituation in that instance is the same Tibetan word gom, which is translated as meditation in other contexts.
Right. That's great. What is Shenpa? Shenpa.
Shenpa.
Shenpa. Shenpa?
No.
No.
Shenpa sena mi jendagdi? Are you talking about the mind apprehending something? Can you give me the context, Jonathan? That's going to help me a lot.
Sort of like the stickiness around the habituation, like what keeps gravitating us towards these afflictions.
Don't know a word that describes it that sounds like Zhenpa. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's fine.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
No, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. My apologies. Jonathan, if you come across that word and you see it written somewhere, feel free to send it to me. But Zhen
Zhen is usually means others. And when we say Zhen pen, that means to benefit others. And Zhenpa is can mean grasping or clinging.
Yeah.
Is that what you're
That's
talking
it.
about?
Zhenpa, yeah.
Thank you. Sorry. Okay. When you said stickiness, it didn't click right away. Yeah. So that means
that's fine.
grasping or clinging.
Okay.
Yeah. So Geshe is saying grasping and clinging are pretty much the same. It's a slightly different flavor of that sort of holding on to mind, right?
And
Does
then
that help
can
you?
that all, yeah, of course, 100%. And then also like the Zhenpa around the afflictions, like the grasping, the wanting to, is that sort of the same idea in terms of the sort of like the grasping is also the affliction?
Zhenpa di nyomong rebes ane perna. So are you asking if the grasping and the affliction are the same thing?
Yeah, like is the grasping also an affliction?
Oh, Zhenpa serie di yang nyomong love to get rebes.
그것도 너무 말was. 배나가 저 텐데 메도레 소마지와나.
Right. Yeah. So no, because the grasping can also be just holding on to something so that we can cognize it. So we can grasp this object to be able to realize that it's a flower. So it's not inherently negative in the way the afflictions are.
Yes.
Yes, yeah. So there is sort of a grasping of wholesome objects and a grasping of unwholesome objects, and a clinging to wholesome objects and a clinging to unwholesome objects. So you have to look at the context.
Got it. Yeah. No, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that, Jonathan. It took me a second, but I think we got there.
No, it took me a while to articulate.
So Geshe said, though, where you'll see this used as Zhenpa is kind of usually a negative thing is the people that are advocating that when we meditate, we have to stop all conceptual thought. And it is only through stopping all conceptual thought that we can come to realize. Then that is kind of you. Then they're saying Zhenpa is always something negative. Right. Yeah. So the people that are advocating this approach, they say it doesn't matter if the cloud is white or gray, the cloud is still blocking the luminosity of the sun. Yeah. Yep. So Lama Tsongkhapa really critiqued this, and he said that it would be a mistake to designate all conceptual thought as unhelpful. What we have to do is develop the knowledge to distinguish which conceptual thoughts are tending in a wholesome direction and which conceptual thoughts are tending in an unwholesome direction.
That's so great. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's also that great debate, Jonathan. You can look into the great debate at Samye. There was a monk who was said to come from China called Hashang Mahāyāna, and he was kind of also debating that all conceptuality is an object, so has to be abandoned.
Interesting. That's great. I'll definitely look that up.
Yes. It's the Samye debates. If you Google it, you can find it under the Samye debates. And yeah. And so Geshe said also, Jonathan, if you want to know about like mental factors like clinging and grasping and so forth, you can look up the teachings on lorik, on mind and mental factors. It's also going to give you like a lot more information about those different kinds of minds.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jonathan. Thank you for sticking with us. Yeah, sorry I didn't get that right away. Any other questions? Dave, go ahead.
Yeah, we have a couple of questions from social media.
Sure.
So first question from Geshe Sonam Dorma, who asks, how to use my inner anger against my inner afflictions?
Geshe Sonam gi chiwa di, nganso nanglo la gi kontro di, nanglo la gi nyomong me pasoya peshatang tugirebes. Nganso nangla kontro chigire wa di peshatang ne nangla gi nyomong denso me paso tugirebesa.
That then karse kare. 다때 맞아 된다 원하지 원이 용거야로.
He's not sure if you can exactly say it like that, but maybe there's a strategy that's similar to that.
다 코로 로도야 말했어. 로도.
Loso.
다 이나요 대도 나오 나지 녀모를 캔저.
Ah.
나도 다다 뭐지나
Mhm.
뭐들 캔저는 이 다다 ወ치선에 막아서 왜야로 왔어.
Kansas and the Karere.
캔저 세를
Chikyong komaso.
캔저 세를 지지다 신이죠.
Ale.
출로까지 지셨음.
Geshe Sonam liu direbe. Okay. Sorry, we're just looking up a verse to address this question. Oh, yes. Hagosung. Yeah, yeah. Nge donang tesa chikbo dabo chikro.
야,
Yeah.
너도 계셔야지. 캔저 주니.
Hagosung. Yeah, yeah. Kansas and the donang tesa dimatoki omare dabo chikro. Utu japsa.
캔저 세를 빼는 멋지게 소설 강에 돼서나.
Kadine kokora sanal tangyeres. Migaj. Yeah, yeah. Kadine sanal tangyere. Yeah. So there's if you we didn't get there yet, but if you look at verse 43, there's this Tibetan word kenza, which is being translated as obsession here. So Geshe is just explaining this word obsession, like if someone does something that really like upsets you, you can kind of become obsessed with that person and always be harboring ill will towards them.
너진간도 컨트롤 제시네라.
Mhm.
멋지게 캔저 주니 가디나 마가와 세르냐네.
Right. So anger kind of can feed into an obsession type mentality where we're always thinking of that person. Ganso semnangula kadine sacha yere dabuji. Yeah. So it's like they're always taking up space. You know that phrase like they're living rent free in your mind? That's kind of like what Geshe is saying. Like it's always that person is in your mind and you're always kind of harboring like, how can I get back at this person? Chashilin kadu ratu girero.
다 된다고 된 농아로 와서 컨트롤이 지서 왔어. 다 된다고 녀모나이 된다고 지서야지 가래 세는.
So that kind of obsession is mistaken when anger has led to that obsession. But there is a healthy type of obsession which we could cultivate as a strategy related to the afflictions. Yeah, yeah. Right. So Geshe's answer to I believe it was Anisonam is how she identified herself, right? So the answer to this is that we can't bring forth that obsession, that determination to hit back, which is connected with anger, because it's connected with anger, which is a mistaken mind. But this attitude of obsession that arises there, that's something to think about. Is that kind of obsession, that constant awareness, something that I can use to tackle the afflictions? So Geshe said maybe it's like like when we first experience what that obsession feels like, right? That might be sort of slightly connected to anger, but it's kind of like that mind itself separated from that anger. How can that be useful to us with addressing the afflictions? Right. So that kind of obsession is like inherently negative in English. In the Tibetan Kenza, it's not really necessarily. But anyways, that's the kind of thing we want to cultivate when we're trying to tackle the afflictions, right? Determination. It's like a determination in a way. Yeah. But it can't be that kind of determination or obsession that's arising directly connected with anger, because that's based on a completely mistaken mind. Yeah. So an unhealthy obsession with a person who has harmed us, right? This is something that is very negative in our mind, mainly because it's arising directly connected to that anger. Yeah. So I think what Geshe wants to leave it here. So this Genza, or this obsession, Geshe said there's a verse, it's not coming to mind right now, but that this obsession, or like, I'd like to look at alternate translations for this. Could we say like determination? Right? How could we translate that? But anyways, it's not necessarily always arising connected with anger. There's a verse like this which you'd like to share, but it's just not coming to mind at the moment. So I guess we can go to the next question, Dave.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Next question is from Ladan. What is the best way to deal with if our health is not on its best and we want to bring up our bodhicitta mind on top of hardship?
Tene nganso nepa yimpe kapula rwa subo debo mepe kapula shuksheda mepe kapula yene nganso semke jangshu gi semke ning jogi dus debo mepe kapula tap yaksha kararis.
Da devo mepe kala ta yashu te derenduas. Da soso ta kange jiwaras. Sechi kanga za chimbo tsani ta nindi lenye binju tiga. Sechi yuzu go lenye ba. Da ya ta to kochi ba shu.
So the best way, like when we're feeling really unwell and we want to kind of bring forth a bodhicitta motivation, is to use that experience of illness or being unwell and think that just as I'm experiencing this illness and discomfort now, may I take that on so that sentient beings do not have to experience the results of their karma as this illness. That's the best way to transform it. And that's something, it's taking the obstacle into the path. That's something that we can definitely practice. It is accessible to us if we just get used to thinking about it. And that's really the essence of this thought transformation teaching, to not let that difficult circumstance become a hindrance for us, but to actually take it into the path and use it as a way to enhance the path of our practice. Yeah, taking obstacle into the path. Yeah. Yeah. So Geshe said he's spoken, to many people with this experience of ill health. And they mentioned that just this way of thinking, of experiencing that for others, was like one of the most effective ways to take that state of being unwell and to, take it into the practice. So and of course, also when we're experiencing that illness, maybe not directly connected with what you asked, but we can also make it into a purification, right? By thinking that by experiencing this illness now, may all of the negativities that I've accumulated through my 3 doors of body, speech, and mind be completely purified. And so you could try alternating between these two, thinking it's purifying my negativities of body, speech, and mind, and thinking I'm experiencing this for all sentient beings. Another way to think about it is, bring into mind like a holy being who you have a lot of respect for, and think that by me experiencing this obstacles, may any obstacles to their activities to benefit others be completely cleared away. Yeah, so you can find, Geshe is recommending, Ladan, you can look more into the teachings on Tonglen, on taking and giving, to help you with this. So I see 2 hands. I think it's Carol and Marta. Carol, I think you were first. So do you want to go ahead, and then we'll talk to Marta?
Thank you so much. Right. I just want to clarify Geshe Sonam's last answer. Verse 29 in the chapter we've just looked at, actually talks about being angry with afflictions.
Yes.
So is it just the meaning, like the determination that he was talking about in the answer to the last question?
So you're mentioning verse 29, Carol, right? Let me just find it in both the Tibetan and English. Just give me a second here. Just give me a sec to find it. Okay, so you're asking about verse 29, right?
In relation to Annie Sonam's question.
Right. Yeah.
So because it does actually use the words anger and patience in the translation.
Yeah, dene nishu sagu, shloka nishu sagu, dagi semla neshi na, gagur dakla neche pa, delang mitro sepa ni. Dene ko chena rwa, dene kontro dang zepa gitsik pesha tangi yeres, chichena anisonam gichiwa dela tene yongsa re dua rwa. Ganso nga hakosang. Yes, I see what you're saying, Carol. Ganso nyomong dinso rwa zepa gongo mares. Zepa gidoksho kontro yensang ko chiwa dela tene chungares. Didabo samotana digireves rwa. Like kans nyomong dinso zepa gomya mi rungwa res. Then they call control. No, I see what you're saying, Carol. So I just want to make sure we're kind of like on the same page here of what I said to Geshe. So you're saying here, it's saying that it's actually totally shameful to be patient with the afflictions and to not have any anger towards them. And so that's where and actually makes total sense. That's where her question's coming from. Like, how then do I use anger against the afflictions? Yeah. Ko nganso zopa gomne kontro chikyang mes mi rungwa dapo gi dondag chik kogire duas. Dene modela tene nganso nyomong samlo tanda kontro peshetane kandes me pasogires. Ko chiwa dela tene chungores.
Yeah, nganso mogin neba shina tela shato zewa gotan yaga tsagya was. Ta nyemug neba shia tela.
Yeah.
An zewa gotan rigya mare. Ta tel pa lete karsigya res.
Dine ine lente di konso kontro mepa yapoyo mares lagire dua ine kontro ngene mares roa shloka nangla. Yeah, so Geshe is saying that the essence of the verse here is an inappropriate application of patience. So like the what we're supposed to be patient with is the person that's giving us trouble, right? But instead we are patient with the affliction, and that's inappropriate. And so then I said to Geshe, yeah, but it says that that it's bad that you didn't get angry. So does that mean that you're supposed to get angry at the affliction? Yes.
Yes.
So Geshe said he wouldn't say that you're supposed to get angry, but that this secondary mind of obsession that arises connected with that person you're angry at. You want to get obsessed with defeating the afflictions. Yeah. It's not anger in the true definition of anger as we usually understand it, but you could say it's definitely a strong dislike for the afflictions. Yeah. Yeah. So, and the inner dialogue is very similar, right? With the person that's angry, you think he or she did this to me last time, and gosh, that really made me upset. And then they did this the time before, and I'm really going to not let them get away with that. But just put that dialogue to the afflictions instead. Yeah. So Geshe says he often tells a story about, there's one of those great old masters from the Kadampa age in Tibet who said to the afflictions, if you relax, then I'll relax. But if you cause me trouble, I'm going to cause you trouble. So it's that kind of determination. Yeah. So very clever. So thank you. No, thank you for that redirect, Carol, because now like that actually, I think it helped both of us understand where Annie Sonam was coming from with her question. Actually, it makes a lot of sense.
To summarize, not being patient is not the same as becoming angry.
Zupa ma gomya dan kontrolangya dunchik mares. It's not exactly, no. No.
And that's the distinction. Thank you so much. And
yes, you're welcome, grateful. Carol. Thank you for that.
I'm very grateful for all the teachings here. Thank you.
You're welcome. Marta, go ahead.
Hello. Well, my question is, what is the correct position? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay. What is the correct position one should take in the face of so much political conflict in the context of the war and the political parties? Because there are people, maybe they are your friends or not your friends, who think differently than one, and you know you think that they are supporting what is not right. And there are other people in the community who behave very badly. In my specific case, in Costa Rica, there's a lot of foreigners or gentrification or people from other countries. We are a very small country, and we are facing a little what Tibet is living, that the people from other places are changing our idiosyncrasy, because they are coming to live here, and now they are more than us and they have more money than us. So the people of the town are angry, you know. Yeah. So we have also the conflict of the war, because people support this.
So, Marta, you're bringing so many things into your question. So we're talking about gentrification, war, politics, people from other countries coming, people. So can you distill it to like?
Okay, the point here is, how can you love all these people when you are supposed to be a Buddha and to have compassion and love and everything? Well, all this is happening.
So you're asking, like, how can you balance having compassion for them and seeing them in a positive light when you see that what they're doing politically or financially is really harming people? Is that kind of...
Exactamente.
Okay, cool. No, I just wanted to make sure I got where you were coming from. All right, awesome. Okay. Then Costa Rica la shugire dua, ane dene dinsan konso kange mambo yeres perna chigiagi mi mambo lemne konso kampa dramanranyo, dene dela chejo konso kampa drosang tan tugimenduas, ane dene yang dela tene dene chapsi duksha chik mi mambo yongire duas, ane chirtang mi dinso konso nepa Champo kielgiredus, konso nupa kielgieres. Konso nupa kiedi ngosinya, treshe gabia, par mepasoe kandes sogores, karin senanganso yang konso semchin res, konso riktang dempares, konso nupa yapo yeres, denenganso dikola kandes chiksamlo tangosa.
Me tedo roas. Ta tedo koroso ta leka no atriona.
Loso.
So da tuba chuguyana, garaso kuyana, machimbo de noso kuyon, koros lete gade, roso to koropoke to yares.
So what Geshe would say here is our practice of love and compassion doesn't mean that we should not identify a mistaken action, a mistaken ideology, or some sort of mistaken situation, and engage in peaceful activities or means to try to stop that situation. So that's the first thing he would say here.
No me korosu yabo chagayona, ta te korosu te jise de demba to yabo chagayona. So shoni layo gazeta de leka yabo je karachana yabo chaya sono to karmado. No kor tambana de washia yama.
But also we have to understand that like we can't always control what we can't control. So that, like, for example, if these people are coming and they're thinking like I'm doing a good thing, right? Like we're bringing money here, and I'm establishing a life here, and I am living well here. And so they think they're doing good thing. You might not be able to convince them that that's destructive. So what you have to try to do is also find your path to achieving something positive for yourself, right? So you have to try to do that as well, not only in opposition. So, but to be clear, right, if them doing well and that causing some problems is very different than mistaken ideologies and mistaken ways of beings that are deliberately harmful or knowingly harmful. And then, of course, in that case, you want to organize or build up power so that with peaceful power, you are able to oppose those negative actions. And that's certainly not against compassion. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Geshe said that he's not so expert in like political and social movements, but this is the advice he would give. Yeah. But we always have to think of like the ultimate meaning of what we're doing, not just the short term. Yeah, so you have to see right. So also we have to distinguish between if someone is behaving in a way that is not necessarily deliberately harmful or maybe even truthful, but just because of some circumstance it's inconveniencing us. This is very different than somebody who is willingly engaging with something that is mistaken and knowingly harmful. And distinguishing between these is also very important. Los.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks so much, Martha. Yeah, right. And so Geshe said in these kind of situations too, you want to be kind with yourselves with how you are training. So normally, like, in the earlier stages of practice, we see these situations and getting angry is kind of just, that's like a natural reaction, right? So instead of just saying, I'm never going to get angry, which is not realistic, just say, okay, I'm not going to hold on to ill will, because anger is just a momentary thing, but ill will is something that we're holding on to for the long term. So that's kind of the first step. The anger arises, but we stop it from changing into ill will. Then the mind of kind of focus and obsession that arises with anger, as we were talking about earlier, if we can take that focus and obsession and somehow make some space between that and the anger and use that obsession to accomplish sort of a positive resolution, we can think about that as well.
So his
Holiness the Dalai Lama often says, like, first we have to see, like, is our reaction to this based on reason, right? Is it a reasonable reaction? If it is, then we can courageously work peacefully to oppose the mistake. And also when we speak about patience, patience isn't just like, okay, I'm never going to respond, but I'm going to hold all the bad feelings and resentments inside me. That's not helpful either, right? That's not helpful either. So His Holiness advises that, like, completely getting rid of anger, this is actually like a pretty high thing. For most of us, what we want to work on is not letting that anger fester into ill will. That's like a really good first step of something to work on.
Oh, yeah.
So that's all I guess I wanted to say. So thanks, Martha, for the question. Dave, it looks like, is there something else?
Yeah, no, this is my own. I just wanted to comment on appreciation and maybe explore briefly this whole idea about anger against the afflictions.
Yeah, control down Yeah, no, it was very, so thank you. Yeah, I want to thank Ani Sonam for the question, and also Carol for kind of helping us unpack it a bit, because I think that was interesting for sure.
I think Geshe is really, really good to have pointed out the distinction, because the being angered on afflictions can easily become being angry at ourselves, and so a degree of hatred towards ourselves is not going to lead to any good result, right? So this determination, this unrelenting determination not to, I could see that being really helpful to cultivate. But it's like guilt and trying to trying to purify with guilt rather than regret. It's kind of the same thing. We have to have compassion for ourselves rather than being angry at ourselves.
Yeah, no, I'm going to share this with Geshe, but Dave, it just reminds me there's a passage in the series by Tubten Chödrön and His Holiness the Dalai Lama. I think it's called Courageous Compassion. It's that volume, the volume that's talking about. And in there, there's a passage. Oh, no, sorry, it's not. It's in a volume by Daniel Kozort, and he mentions that somebody asked His Holiness the Dalai Lama about self-hatred, and he was like kind of shocked. But that's something that we're very familiar with in our part of the world. And I think you identified it, like that anger, if we try to direct it, it can lead to that self-loathing. Kontro soso nyomong la kontro langores labna, dene soso la kontro langya dang chipo chageredwa, soso la kontro langya, dene nga so semchuk cha nga mi duksha yin dang samso dinso namto ramanja dabochik yongireduas. Yeah. So Geshe agrees, and so that's not what we want to do. That's not what we want to do. Yeah, because our self is not. So our self is not a suitable object of anger either, right? It's the afflictions within ourselves. Very important.
Yeah. It's easy to get that mixed up.
Yes, no, for sure. I think like psychologies are different here, right? So no, it's an important point.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. Geshe said, if it's okay, we will leave it here. And don't forget, next weekend, our special events, the Arising Bodhicitta meditation and Bodhisattva vows on Saturday, and then also the Medicine Buddha after that. And yes, this is going to be available for folks at home as well. So just keep an eye on our calendar. Take care, everybody. Take care.